welcome to your personalized deep dive. Today, we're wading through a stack of news briefs, specifically from April 20th, 2025.
That's right. We've got insights from IE Delhi, today's Reuters India feed, and TH Delhi.
And our goal, as always, is to kind of cut through that noise. We want to give you a solid handle on the key developments, politics, international stuff, policy, legal matters, big incidents, tech, you name it.
Basically a rapid but thorough understanding without you having to sift through everything yourself.
Exactly. So let's kick off with just a quick run-through of some key headlines hitting the front pages.
Okay, where do we start?
Well, IE Delhi seems to be focusing on academic results, admissions processes, that sort of thing. Also hints at educational policy discussions and maybe wider social or economic shifts.
Right, education is always a big topic.
Then switching over to Reuters India news for today. It's very much India-centric. Politics, business, maybe some social issues bubbling up, given Reuters' usual scope.
Pretty standard focus for their India feed, yeah.
Okay, now for TH Delhi, also from the 20th. Quite a few big stories here. First up, achievement in the JEE mains. 24 students got a perfect 100 percentile.
Wow, out of nearly 10 lakh candidates, that's impressive. 9.92 lakh, it says. And they mentioned the normalization process, too.
Yeah, which is always, point of discussion. Then a really tragic story out of Mustafabad in Delhi.
Ah, yes, the building collapse. Horrible.
11 killed. A 4-story building just collapsed, trapped 22 people. An investigation's been ordered, and there's 2 lakh ex gratia for the families.
And inevitably political fallout, too.
Yep. The BJP is pointing fingers at the previous AAP government over unauthorized constructions.
That's often the case in these situations, sadly. What else from THA?
There's this visa row heating up. India's expressed concern because Indian students are getting visa revocation notices from the U.S.
Oh, I saw that. The U.S. is denying any bias, right?
They are, but the report mentioned the study finding that like 50% of those affected were from India. So questions are being asked.
Half is a very significant proportion. Definitely something to watch.
Also, the BMC transferred an official over the demolition of a Jain temple in Mumbai. And Delhi police submitted a report in that public property defacement case involving Arvind Kejriwal.
Okay, quite a mix of governance and legal proceedings there. Any major political headlines?
Yeah, BJD chief Anil Patnaik is pushing back against what he calls the BJP's false narrative in Odisha. And down south, the NDA won a no-confidence motion against the Visakhapatnam mayor.
Right, political tussles continuing. Anything else jump out from the front page?
Couple more things. There are worries in Assam about the Subansiri Dam project nearing its target, specifically the downstream impact.
The All Assam Students' Union is involved, I believe?
They are raising concerns. And on a positive note, an Odisha farmer seems set for a great harvest with a special paddy seed variety.
Oh, the Kionjar Kalachampa. Nice to see some good news.
Definitely. Okay, that's kind of the rapid-fire front page round. Gives us a flavor.
It certainly does. A lot happening on multiple fronts. Human tragedy, political maneuvering, international issues, education.
So let's try and unpack some of these a bit more. Where should we begin? Maybe that building collapse in Delhi.
Yeah, that's a significant one. 11 deaths. It's a stark reminder, as the report suggests, of the dangers of, well, unauthorized construction.
And the political angle, the BJP versus AAP, it immediately brings up questions of accountability, doesn't it? Urban planning, safety regulations.
Absolutely. It forces us to look at the regulatory side. Are the rules strong enough? More importantly, are they actually enforced, especially in areas seeing rapid growth?
And how does something like this impact public trust? Trust in the local authorities and the planning process.
It definitely erodes it, and it becomes political fodder, which can sometimes distract from finding real solutions, but it also perhaps increases scrutiny, which isn't always a bad thing.
True. Okay, shifting gears a bit. The visa issue for Indian students in the U.S. India is concerned. The U.S. denies bias, but that 50% figure hangs in the air.
It's a significant number. You can't just dismiss it. It warrants a much closer look. What could be driving that?
That's the question, isn't it? Is it a policy shift, an administrative glitch, issues with applications, or something else entirely?
It could be a mix of things, but when one nationality is disproportionately affected, it naturally raises flags. Transparency is key here from the U.S. side.
And India's diplomatic channels getting involved shows how seriously they're taking it.
As they should. It impacts thousands of students and families and the broader India-U.S. educational exchange.
Okay, let's turn to domestic politics. We mentioned Naveen Patnaik versus the BJP in Odisha and Tejaswi Yadav's allegations in Bihar about misuse of funds.
Fairly standard pre-election sparring, wouldn't you say?
Pretty much. Accusations fly, narratives are built or attacked. It's all about shaping public perception before people vote.
Right. And invoking history, too, like Rahul Gandhi talking about Nehru's legacy of resisting oppression. It's about anchoring current politics in certain values or historical interpretations.
Then there's that interesting divergence in Tamil Nadu. They're launching their own SIL development scheme as an alternative to the center's Vishwakarma scheme.
And the key difference seems to be the opposition to what they perceive as potentially reinforcing caste-based vocations in the central scheme.
Exactly. It highlights a fundamental disagreement on social policy, doesn't it? National vision versus a state's specific social goals.
It really does. It shows the complexities of federalism and differing philosophies on how to achieve social justice and economic upliftment. Tamil Nadu is clearly charting its own course there.
Interesting. And also on the governance front, there's the appointment of Justice B.R. Gavai as the next Chief Justice of India.
Yes, and his appointment is significant, coming at a time when the judiciary is facing, well, let's say, increased scrutiny.
Plus, the fact that he'll be the second Dalit CJI adds another layer of historical importance.
Absolutely. All eyes will be on his tenure and how the judiciary navigates the challenges ahead.
Okay, let's broaden out to international relations. Beyond the student visa issue, which we've touched on, the U.S. and India are also talking about a Beyond Trade Agreement, or BTA.
Yes, aiming for deeper economic ties. But it seems there are hurdles.
Agriculture, specifically. The report suggests India might find it tough to offer concessions beyond, like nuts and fruits. Why is agriculture always such a sticking point in these deals?
Well, it's deeply tied to livelihoods for millions, food security, even national identity sometimes. Governments are incredibly protective of their agricultural sectors.
So tariffs and market access become very sensitive negotiation points.
Extremely sensitive. There are powerful domestic lobbies, and any perceived negative impact on farmers can be politically explosive. So finding common ground requires very careful balancing.
Makes sense. Then there's the wider geopolitical picture, the U.S.-China tech Cold War. NVIDIA feeling the pressure to restrict AI chip sales to China.
That's a huge story with massive ripple effects. It's not just about one company or one product.
What kind of effects are we talking about?
Well, it impacts global supply chains, obviously. It can slow down innovation in certain areas, potentially. And it pushes countries like China to double down on achieving self-sufficiency in critical tech.
So it redraws the lines of technological development almost.
It could, potentially leading to more fragmented tech ecosystems globally. It really highlights how intertwined technology, economics, and geopolitics have become.
And India also took a strong stance regarding minorities in Bangladesh.
Yes, condemning what it termed the systematic persecution of Hindu minorities under the interim government there. Strong words.
How does that play into the regional dynamic?
It's a consistent theme in India's neighborhood policy concern for minority rights. It adds a layer of complexity to the India-Bangladesh relationship, which is generally cooperative but has these sensitive points, requires careful diplomacy.
And elsewhere, talks between the U.S. and Iran on the nuclear program seem to be back on.
Yes, another round concluded, mediated by Oman apparently, and they plan to meet again. It suggests diplomatic channels are still open, despite everything else going on.
Keeping dialogue alive is crucial there. Meanwhile, the situation in Ukraine. Putin announced an Easter truce, but reports suggest it wasn't fully holding.
Yeah, truces in that conflict have often been fragile. And the report mentioning Trump being far from ending the war 3 months after taking power, while it underscores the intractability of the conflict.
Russia's core demands seem unchanged, making a resolution very difficult.
Deep-seated issues, absolutely. Finding a path to lasting peace remains elusive.
Okay, let's pivot back to policy issues within India. The Subansiri Dam in the northeast. Concerns are mounting as the completion target nears.
Right, the downstream impact in Assam is the main worry. The All Assam Students' Union is quite vocal, criticizing the center over past assurances.
It highlights that classic tension, doesn't it? Development projects versus environmental and social costs.
Exactly. And the need for genuine consultation, transparent impact assessments, and accountability. When trust breaks down over past commitments, it makes future projects much harder.
We also saw that incident in Mumbai, the demolition of a Jain temple and the transfer of an official.
Another sensitive issue. Unauthorized structures are one thing, but religious sites require extremely careful handling.
It shows the tightrope walk for urban authorities, balancing regulations with community sentiments.
Definitely. A very delicate balancing act in a diverse city like Mumbai.
Then there's the debate around the NEET PG exam for doctors. The Indian Medical Association is opposing a two-shift plan.
Yeah, their main concern seems to be about the normalization process, ensuring fairness and transparency if different sets of students take exams at different times.
High-stakes exams always bring these kinds of fairness debates, don't they?
They do. Ensuring a level playing field and maintaining trust in the process is paramount.
And on the security front, police in Punjab reported busting ISI-backed Khalistani terror modules.
A reminder of the ongoing internal security challenges India faces and the cross-border element that often complicates things. Seizing weapons indicates a tangible threat.
There was also that public safety alert about online scams targeting pilgrims.
Ah, yes, for Kedarnath and the Char Dham Yatra. Important warning, especially with pilgrimage season likely approaching. Cybercrime targeting faith is particularly insidious.
And the Supreme Court is hearing a petition about uniform compensation for victims of hate crimes and lynching.
That's a significant push for consistency and a stronger legal response to these terrible crimes across the country, seeking equity in how victims are treated.
Let's touch on a few more legal and judicial points. We mentioned the Delhi police report on the Kejriwal property defacement case.
Right, that's the legal process playing out, holding political figures accountable under the law.
And a Gujarat court sentenced a former IAS officer for irregularities in land allotment.
An example of the system tackling alleged corruption in public office, important for maintaining public trust in administration.
We also saw the Chief Justice of India expressing concern about civil disputes being turned into criminal cases, especially noting a trend in Uttar Pradesh.
That's a really important point about the integrity of the legal system. Why is that trend seen as problematic?
Well, it potentially clogs up the criminal courts with matters that should be handled through civil procedures. It can also be, misused to pressure opponents in civil matters.
Right. It risks undermining the distinction between civil wrongs and actual crimes. The CJI highlighting it gives it significant weight.
And in sports administration, the Hyderabad Cricket Association ombudsman ordered Azharuddin's name removed from a stand at Uppal Stadium.
Conflict of interest was cited, wasn't it?
Yes. It underscores the need for ethical conduct and transparency, even in sports bodies.
Good governance principles apply everywhere.
Okay, let's quickly recap the major incidents mentioned. The Delhi building collapse, obviously the most tragic, with 11 fatalities.
Yes, the investigation and support for families are the immediate focus there.
Then the extremely sad news of the Indian student, Harsimrat Randhawa, killed by a stray bullet in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.
Just awful. A reminder of the dangers of gun violence and a tragedy with international dimensions.
And a Kerala actor, Shine Tom Chacko, was arrested in a drug case but later released on bail.
Highlighting the ongoing issues around drugs, sometimes involving figures in the public eye.
Right. Let's shift to technology and the economy for our final section. India apparently dodged the immediate hit from China's rare earth export curbs.
Which is good news in the short term. But the reports also stress lingering worries about long-term dependence, right?
Exactly. As India's manufacturing ambitions grow, relying too heavily on one source for critical materials like rare earths becomes riskier.
So what are the options? Diversification? Domestic production?
Probably a mix of all that. Investing in exploration, maybe finding alternative materials through R&D, building partnerships with other supplier countries. It's about building resilience.
Crucial for strategic autonomy in manufacturing. What else on the economic front?
We saw strong growth reported for mutual funds like Nippon India and ICICI MF in terms of assets under management.
Indicates investor confidence, perhaps, or shifts in savings patterns.
And several major banks, ICICI, HDFC, Yes Bank, reported their Q4 results.
Yeah.
Mostly showing growth, though details vary. Dividends announced too.
Gives us a pulse reading on the health of the banking sector, which is always a key economic indicator.
Also, a big deal in the logistics space, Delivery and Ecom Express, seeking regulatory approval for a 1,400 crore deal.
Signals consolidation and growth in e-commerce logistics, which is a booming sector. The Competition Commission's nod will be needed, though.
And finally, a few interesting developments in science and tech, promising early results for stem cell therapies for Parkinson's disease.
Yes, 2 independent trials showing safety. That's a significant step, offering hope, though it's still early days.
There was also some debate mentioned about the National Institute of Virology, NIV, and data sharing practices, specifically regarding an H5N1 virus case.
Right, questions about scientific transparency and the timely sharing of vital public health data, always a sensitive area.
And research on genetically engineering rice to produce more CoQ10.
Interesting work on biofortification enhancing the nutritional value of staple foods. Coenzyme Q10 plays a role in energy production.
Then there's the ongoing search for life beyond Earth, the planet K2-18b being discussed in terms of potential habitability.
Keeps the cosmic perspective, doesn't it? Still, lots of unknowns, but the search continues.
And an analysis questioning if trade wars might lead to an import surge in India due to dumping.
A reminder of how global trade dynamics can impact the domestic economy. Concerns about unfair competition.
So quite a diverse range of developments just in the tech and science sphere alone.
Absolutely, from potential medical breakthroughs to economic dependencies and the search for life elsewhere.
Okay, so wrapping up, we've covered a lot of ground. Politics, tragedies, international talks, policy debates, tech trends.
It really paints a picture of, well, a very dynamic and interconnected world, so much happening simultaneously across different sectors.
What stands out most to you from everything we've discussed today? Is there one thread or theme that seems particularly significant?
That's a tough one. I think maybe the underlying tension between national interests and global interconnectedness. We see it in trade talks, in tech restrictions, even in managing health data or environmental impacts that cross borders. It feels like a recurring theme. How about you?
For me, perhaps it's the constant push-pull between development and its consequences. The Subansiri Dam concerns, the Delhi building collapse linked to unauthorized construction. It's this ongoing challenge of progress versus safety, sustainability, and equity.
That's a really insightful point. And of course, we've only really skimmed the surface here. Each of these stories has so much more depth.
Exactly. This is meant to be a starting point, way to get you informed quickly. Hopefully it sparks some questions for you, our listeners, maybe some areas you want to explore further.
Think about those connections. How might U.S.-China tech tensions eventually filter down to businesses or consumers in India? How could stem cell research breakthroughs ultimately change healthcare policy? It's all part of a bigger web.
We hope this deep dive has been useful, giving you those aha moments without feeling completely overwhelmed by the news cycle.
Thanks for tuning in and diving deep with us. Until next time, keep exploring.